I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And we're late, but we are here. And because you made me wait, I'm going to, right off the bat, I'm going to whip out my hard, large meat.
What? Ooh, that looks pretty.
That is my 15 pounds of thawing out Memorial Day brisket.
That looks pretty.
I'm just saying.
All right.
I was going to whip my meat out during the show later, but since you made me wait, I whipped my meat out right at the beginning. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I mean, I know about where you live at. I will go driving around West Milton and I will just let my nose, guide me to wherever you're at.
All right. I haven't decided when I'm actually going to cook it. I want to do it Saturday night, Sunday night. I'll find out. So.
Start Sunday night and have it on Sunday.
Well,
or Sunday morning,
Monday,
rather. Yeah.
Right. We'll see. We'll see. My wife has to now work on Memorial Day because my daughter has to do something. She has to take my daughter to a doctor issue and later in the week. So we're not eating Memorial Day meal till later in the night. So probably the problem is if I throw it on too early or too late Sunday night, it'll be done too early Monday. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of, I don't know. I either got to put it on like at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, which means I won't sleep well. I don't sleep well when I'm smoking at night.
Well, no, I mean, you get tired, right? Like after. I worry about my meat. So I just have trouble. I have trouble sleeping at night. And right now, the weather in Ohio is so screwed up. You can go to bed and all the temperatures be fine, and then at night the temperature will drop 40 degrees. The wind will kick up, and next thing you know, your smoker's dead.
No, it's the opposite. The wind makes it go up. The wind. Well,
that part. I'm talking about the rain, though.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. We'll see. But I just like I said, I was proud of my meat. So, whipped it out. Chris, welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Fan Sportscast. And we're going to talk about a couple of things tonight. Eventually, we're going to get to some best ball basics. And I think we're going to definitely start with like 101, where you just convince me, maybe part of it'll be you just have to convince me that I should be playing it. And the advantages and the fun parts of it. Right. Then we'll talk a little bit about the expert draft. See, I've been calling you my expert, and you've been saying no, but now I see all this information where you were a part of, and everything I see, it calls it an expert draft. It doesn't say expert plus one person.
Well,
it doesn't say expert plus one crazy guy. No, it says expert, and you're there, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud that now I can call you an expert, and you can't do anything about it because it's in writing.
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know why they put the title. I mean, it should have been. Well, the expert mock plus one crazy guy wouldn't fit in the title, so they had to pull that part off. Okay. That's what they originally suggested, right. And then
I'm just saying, people, we have a few listeners, but we don't have enough because I don't think they realize, that we have you, an expert. We're accessible. We're easy.
That's right.
People want information. They can come here. We're live on YouTube, sometimes on Facebook, but I schedule it too early and you don't show up. So then we're not live on Facebook tonight. But normally we're trying to be live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Spreaker. We're on Twitter. You can,
come find us.
Come find us because I have an expert and one crazy person.
Right. And they're the same guy.
With a big piece of meat.
With a big piece of meat. That's right.
So that's all I got to say. I'm a crazy guy with a big piece of meat. But that being said, just before the show started, I told you I am watching a sporting event.
There's live sports on.
Live sports on a Wednesday night. It's NASCAR racing. They had a NASCAR race live Sunday. I watched that too.
Yeah.
Because it was a live sporting event. I also watched, for the first time, I had 2 TVs on. You know, I have 6 TVs on my wall, right? We've had that discussion. For the first time in a long time, I had 2 TVs on because I had the NASCAR race and the live golf. We had live golf.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, and the live golf, it was just 4 guys. It was a skins game where they, were their teams. But I actually got to watch real sports. And the week before that, I know we had off. I had some health issues I had to deal with in my family. But the week before that, we had live MMA fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you watched. I did. I'm not an MMA guy, but I felt like
I saw some of the clips.
A very, very good night of fighting.
It was like it sounded physical with no crowd or anything like that.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
You could hear what was going on. It was brutal. 24 laps to go and it's raining. The race is caution. I'm giving you play-by-play. We have rain. Now they say a short shower. They might be able to finish the race, but no, the MMA fight for people who were wanting live sports for the first time in a long time was an excellent card. The fights were very, very action-packed. You're right. Without any fans in the stands, you could hear the hits, the punches.
Yeah. It sounded bad.
It did. Now, the NASCAR race has no fans in the stands, and it sounds the same. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Who knew?
Who knew? Right. Who knew that? So now we're just down to a few, I don't know. Some people would say the real sports to come back. Baseball, the Players Association's having issues with agreement on money. I think now they've agreed on the safety aspect of it. Football isn't saying anything yet, but there still are a lot of people that I still read that really still don't think we're going to, at a minimum, don't think we'll see the first 4 weeks. That I think more and more experts are saying it could happen. But if it does happen, we'll see it a month later. Are you on that? Are you on that bandwagon, or are you still on the I don't think we're going to see it at all bandwagon? Just update me on your opinions now.
No, my thought is that we'll see it, but it's going to be, it's either a month late, a shortened season, but just something along those lines.
And that's if all these states that are bringing people, opening up, let's say, and people back out and about. That's hoping that doesn't cause anything more to happen too, right? I mean, that's the big thing we're dealing with now. If we're going to have football, I don't think we can have any reaction to the opening of the states now. Meaning, if just one state has a jump in numbers, I think football could be in trouble.
Oh, yeah, because, you have to think what's going to happen the first time just one player, because it's going to happen at some point, unfortunately.
I
that one player is going to get it, and then now, what happens when it's Tom Brady, Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, Aaron, what happens when it's one of those guys?
Right.
And then now the entire team is now affected because either they could also be infected by the virus, but now they're having to go into their next 2 weeks of games without their best player. So it's like entire franchises, their direction is now completely changing and impacted because of the virus.
Right. Which baseball, I don't want to say it's come out and said, but I've heard things, and what they're talking about is if they decide to start the season, they're not going to stop for a few cases. Meaning, if a few players get it, they're going to keep going.
Wow.
Because they don't. Now, I'm assuming that's if it's just a couple. Obviously, if it becomes a lot, then you have to do something else. But I think what they're saying is, if one or two here or there get it, that's not going to be enough for us to shut it down. We're going to commit to moving forward. And like you said, that's fine to say now, but it's not when it's your best player or,
right.
Two guys on the best team, or something like that. Or I don't even know. I mean, I think baseball's a little different. In football, if you lost a coach would make a big difference, right? I mean, a head coach. Baseball's a little different as far as coaching goes. It's not, the players are a little more, I don't want to use the word in charge, but, once the game's being played, there's, baseball's not as strategic in that aspect. But
right.
I don't know. It's just a strange time. We don't really know. How are you? You everybody in your household still
all
healthy?
Happy, all healthy. Yeah,
we're good. Are you all still at home?
Yes, all still at home. Actually, my wife, who's a teacher, we've discussed this many times, but today was her actual last day where she went to the school and helped clean out lockers and stuff for the kids.
I got you.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So she's done. So there will be no going back now till next year, maybe. And we don't this year, but next school year.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, it's just crazy. And like I said, the sports thing. Hey, I know it. Obviously, you forgot there was even NASCAR on today. I'm guessing you're not a big NASCAR guy, so
not really my thing.
Okay,
not gonna lie to you.
But MMA wasn't really my thing, but because I wanted sports, I watched it and I got very entertained. So, I mean, my argument be give it a shot. I mean, I don't know. There's some people don't even think NASCAR is a sport. I do believe nowadays.
I'm one of those people.
Okay, nowadays the drivers are physically fit. They're not like they used to be. I mean, there is a lot. They come out of those cars sweating. I mean, I get it. And, and there is some strategy involved. There's pit strategy, fuel strategy. I know you don't want to hear all that if you're not.
I will not say that there's no strategy involed.
Okay. Okay, wait a minute. In NASCAR, there is strategy.
Yeah, I agree.
In NASCAR, there is a wear and tear on your body. Mm-hmm. There's physical contact. I mean, it's almost football. I mean, come on, Chris.
It's almost football. Well, with the way that they run into each other with those cars, I mean, it is kind of, it is kind of like football, I guess.
The other thing I've participated in this week, sports-wise, YouTube, I should look it up. YouTube has a YouTube channel that has marble racing.
What?
Marble racing is very entertaining. I recommend, even during our show, who cares? Stop, go to YouTube, type in marble racing. They actually have a series. I mean, they have tracks. They keep track of what marble wins.
How is that even possibly a thing?
Chris, it is a thing. They have sponsorship. And the announcers are announcing it like it's a real race.
I'm so confused right now.
Highly, highly entertaining. I don't know how else, to put it, but marble racing on YouTube is a thing, and it's been going on for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
I sit down with your 2 children, watch a few marble races. They're 15.
They would probably like it.
It's hysterical. And when the first time I watched it, I saw the first marble get in the lead. I thought, okay, it's over. The white marble's going to win. I mean, it's round balls going down a track that are physically the same. So you would think the lead marble would just win. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't work that way. You have to watch. The track curves and turns and marbles hit weird spots and slow down. And you'll see a marble buzz by another marble. It is action-packed. Highly recommend it. I don't know that there's fantasy marble yet, but fantasy NASCAR. I mean, I'm assuming DraftKings,
There has to be something like a market.
Well, no. NASCAR at DraftKings is a thing, and it's pretty fun. You build a team just like you do for football. You build a team. You have so much money, and you get to buy 5 or 6 drivers. With your salary, and obviously you get points for every driver. Based on every time they pass a car, if they're lead or lap. There are points just like for football. It does make watching NASCAR a little more entertaining to, be playing fantasy DraftKings. And I know they have it for golf. Now, they don't have it for the skins games and stuff yet.
That's kind of surprising that they don't have it for the skins game.
Well, okay. I'm assuming they don't have fantasy for that. I'm assuming they do have gambling or other things you could bet on it. But you can't really have a fantasy when there's only 4 guys playing in the skins game. Now, I know there's 4 new people playing this week. Tiger Woods, Mickelson. I know are the 2 big names, but I think there's also another one of those where it's just, they're playing skins or they're playing for charity. So that'll be pretty exciting. But and NASCAR is again, I'm sure we've already lost our audience. I've talked about meat, NASCAR, and marbles. But NASCAR, they want to run as many races as possible. So they're running races on the weekends. Yeah. They're running races on the weekends and races during the week. And in this case, they're running on the same track 2 races in a row. They raced on the same track Sunday, and they're racing again on Wednesday to get all the, so they can, it saves less chance of, there's less travel that way. They normally do race the same track maybe twice in a season. Yeah. But instead of coming and going, they're just going to stay there, race twice in a few days and get the races in. So,
okay.
Pretty cool that we have some sports kicking in. And like I said, I'm just hoping that all the states opening up, we don't have anything, take off and the numbers go back up and we shut down again. So
yes, that's what I'm hoping for the same.
There's hoping everybody's well. The first little news tidbit tonight that I saw or got, and I'm curious about your fantasy outlook, and that's that Devontae Freeman supposedly was offered a $4 million contract to play in Seattle. I don't know. Actually seems like a good fit, but for fantasy really screws up some keeper value and or just, man, I mean, now you'd be talking, 3 running backs there, 4? What's your opinion if Freeman decides to take the $4 million and go to Seattle? Because from what I understand, it really was an offer. I don't think this is a rumor. I think based on what I understand, it was actually offered.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. And if that's the case, then that really throws like pretty much everybody's plans like into a kind of a wrench there, because as of right now, I'm looking at ourlads.com and they have one of the most updated depth charts like for each team. Right. They currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs currently on the team right now. So Devonta Freeman, I mean, obviously he would leapfrog at least 5 of them and kind of be the 1A, 1B to Chris Carson. To me, that makes it sound like Rashad Penny's injury towards the end of last season either isn't progressing as I thought it would, or at the very least, he won't be ready for the start of the 2020 season. So there should be concern there if anybody was investing in Rashad Penny, like in best balls, or looking to invest in him in redraft for the 2020 season. Chris Carson, different story, but at the very least, I think there should be some concern at the top for both of those injured running backs, like coming off of 2019. But I was interested in getting the guys like Travis Homer, the guy that ended the season, because he looked pretty decent, running alongside Marshawn Lynch, and even the rookie that they drafted, DJ Dallas. I was looking at maybe snagging some of them later, that guy later in best balls, but with this
Lynch, and haven't I heard that Lynch has said he would sign a contract, and have they offered him one?
Yep.
So it's just amazing. Now I think the other team rumored that was interested was also the Jets, which seems like a good fit also. But again, another big fantasy thing there. I know we've talked about a lot of people aren't on the Bell train, but that definitely would knock Bell down, some. And at either spot, I don't think it helps Freeman. You know what I'm saying? I mean, either spot, do you still look and go, well, Freeman could be the guy, but because I don't think he'd be the guy at either place, but he would be next to the guy, if not the next guy up, at least his share of the carries.
Yeah, I can't think of a situation that currently exists where if he were to sign, he would be the guy. Other than it's possible that if he went to Los Angeles, they might want to just go ahead and stick him in as being the guy because they drafted Cam Akers. They have Darrell Henderson. I mean, if they want to try and maybe preserve Akers and they're not all that thrilled with what they've seen out of Darrell Henderson, they could just go ahead and say, here, Freeman, we need to win some games and turn the reins over to him. That's possible, but I don't think there's a situation that exists where if he were to sign with them, he'd be their starting running back in week 1.
I hate to say it. Could he be the number 1 running back if he would go to Washington? Could he be the number 1 running back if he went to Philadelphia?
Washington, no. I mean, but that's based on the assumption that Darius Geis is ready to roll.
Right?
Yes. I still think I haven't seen nothing to the contrary that Darius Geis couldn't start week 1. So I don't think that's the case. Or at the very least, they'll just turn it over to Adrian Peterson. Philadelphia, no. I think they're fine with what they have in Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. I mean, any rumors to them picking up a veteran running back, that's more of like an insurance policy. Essentially, what they're doing with Jordan Howard, like down in Miami. I think that he might wind up getting some touches, right, but not enough to really completely throw off like what we're currently seeing, like with Miles Sanders going into 2020.
Now, I'm looking at your expert draft board right now. I'm actually looking to see any idea. I was looking at towards the bottom. Where did Darius Geis get drafted?
Oh, yeah. Matthew Berry took him.
Matthew Berry, who was the number 1 pick.
Berry took him in the 9th round.
Oh, I see him there. Yep, the 9th round. All right. So that's where he went. And Matthew Berry, isn't he a Washington Redskins fan?
Hail to the Redskins.
Right. So, all right. Any other? I mean, the Devontae Freeman news is the one that I took the most. Am I missing anything else? I don't think anything major happened in the last week.
No, I mean nothing major.
I mean, a few NFL guys running around with guns. And robbing people and going to jail, right? The whole
being
thing.
Fugitives from the law. Really sad. I mean, really sad.
The NFL struggles with that a little bit, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is life that miserable where an NFL guy can't go? Didn't he get his $1,200? His check.
I don't know, man.
From Trump and.
It's very, very sad that's what happens.
We have race car drivers walking around in the rain now, so I don't know if they've called the race. I was so disappointed I didn't get to see a finish. So, oh well. Then let's go right to the expert draft. Do you want to read me all the names of the experts?
Sure.
I have the draft board up here, but all I have is their email or their Twitter handles. Go ahead and we'll start if you want. Do you have it in order of where they drafted? Because I see Matthew Berry. I know based on his email or his Twitter handle, it's and then Evan Silva. So I got the first two, and I think that's how they picked.
Yeah. So Matthew Berry started us off. ESPN, obviously. Evan Silva from Establish the Run. The next two were 444 guys. So Justin Edwards, Justin actually, he lives in Columbus and he's been down to my house a couple of times. We played poker together with Joey.
Okay.
TJ Hernandez, he's the director of best ball over at 444. Scott Barrett came after him. So Scott Barrett, formerly of PFF, now he's with the site called Fantasy Points. Then it was me, Brad Evans, Noisy Huevos, with Sirius XM. JJ Zacharyson, the late round quarterback from FanDuel Number Fire. Jen Eakins, she's my editor at 444. Scott Fish, everybody knows Scott Fish.
Yep.
Ian Harditz, he's with Roto World. He does shows with Pat Doherty, Josh Norris, John Daigle, and then finally Chris Raybon of the Action Network now, formerly of 444 and Number Fire.
Right. And I think I've heard him on Sirius. Action Network now has a Sirius thing. So I've heard him there.
Yep.
I think Brad Evans also I've caught on Sirius before. So, like I said, 11 experts and one crazy guy. But Matthew Berry tries. I'm going to give it.
Yeah.
Because I do. Have you read his book? Did you enjoy? I did get it. I enjoyed, for a fantasy book, it was a fun read. Because it isn't all fantasy. Obviously, it's about his life.
His life, his time at Syracuse, his marriage. I mean, all that stuff.
Yeah, his time as a writer. You know, Crocodile Dundee, like 5 or something. I think he wrote one of those.
Yeah, I thought it was actually the first or second one or something like that.
I don't think it's the first. I think it's the second or the third. It is one of the sequels, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, there we go. All right.
But no, the book is very entertaining.
I thought so. Yes.
I ended up I got it on Audible, so I got it on book on tape, and then ended up buying the book also because it was fun to go back and read certain things. So, but very entertaining read. I'd recommend it right now if you don't have enough fantasy sports to listen to. It's pretty entertaining. So. And JJ Zachariason, very entertaining podcast.
Yes.
Who's his sidekick? Who's the other? Well, he does his own show, but then he does the late round.
Living the Stream. With Denny Carter. Yeah. I work for Denny.
Denny cracks me up.
Yep.
I'd listen to Denny even if he's not talking about fantasy.
Oh, he's a funny dude.
During the season, I'll sometimes skip the whole podcast and get right to the end where he just does his
the tilt montage.
Yes, that's by far the best part. I don't know if he makes it up or not. I don't care. I try to think that it really happened, but I do think he's creative enough to come up with stories. But he cracks me up. Based on what I see here, this was I'm going to use the word slow draft, but this was a draft done over time. It didn't.
Yes.
So you had. Can you give me that information? Was this? Did you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 hours? How
10 hours, I think.
10 hours. Okay. Yeah. Half point PPR.
Yes.
Is this going to be played out, or was this truly just a mock draft for?
Just a mock draft.
Okay. All right. So, all right then, and you picked number 6. Let's just, I don't know, let's do the first round every pick. I think it's pretty simple. And this does seem to be pretty common, 12 players. I mean, I didn't see anything, in my opinion, that was really strange. McCaffrey, number 1, that seems to be I don't think I've seen a mock draft yet that at least was a serious mock draft where he wasn't taken number 1. Is that pretty much, have you seen anyone take anybody else? I mean, is he?
I've seen some switch off between him and Barkley. Typically I've seen CMC, but I've seen some folks go Barkley first.
All right. Well, then Barkley goes second in this. Then Elliott, then Cook. So 4 running backs right off the bat. That does seem to be pretty standard.
Yep.
And actually, I'd even say most of them you see 5 or 6 running backs before you see Thomas go off the board. I was surprised to see Thomas go off the board in a half point PPR. I think a full point PPR, pick 5, maybe even 4 if you wanted. I wouldn't argue with it. But half point or non PPR, I don't know. I really looked back. You took Kamara. I might have taken Kamara before Thomas. Would you? And if you were picking 5 there, would you have taken Thomas, or would you have stuck with Kamara?
I think I still would have stuck with Kamara, to be quite honest.
I do too. So I think you got a little bit of a steal. I don't think you got. I mean, I think Kamara. I mean, at 6 is the perfect pick, right? I mean, so there, Derrick Henry, then another wide receiver, then is Adams. Then Jones, then Hopkins, then Hill, and then Jones again and pick 12. Aaron Jones, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Jones.
And so anything odd you see in the first round, or what was your opinion of the first round?
No, the first round looked pretty standard to me. I think based off of where I've seen a lot of those guys fall in best balls, but of course, best ball is full point PPR. But even still, the first round, you're looking to get some of those alpha dogs in each of their respective offenses. I thought that happened for the most part. The one thing what I was slightly surprised about was seeing at the back end Aaron Jones over Joe Mixon. I've seen actually Joe Mixon come ahead of Aaron Jones, and I kind of understand it. So that was a slight surprise, but I can see the case for either being drafted.
I think that's close enough, though, that
you're splitting hairs at that point.
That's preference.
Yeah.
Right. Because here would be my problem. The reason I would argue a little bit against, I know you're an expert. I'm sorry, as a Bengals guy, I don't think Mixon plays this year. I really don't. I don't think Mixon's going to play. I think he's going to hold out. I would not take Mixon there. So I understand if we thought and knew he was playing 100%, I would agree with you.
Right.
Because that question mark is even there. I'm not taking that in the first round. I'm not taking that question mark in the first round right now. That would be my argument. And maybe Chris thought that. Maybe that was part of his argument. I still don't. Most mock drafts, Mixon is going at the end of one, beginning of two. So. I don't see that personally. I get it. 2 years ago, Bell went one, and he was the number one draft pick in a lot of drafts, and he still held out and didn't play. And I don't know. I'm not in the first round. I'm not taking that. Then let's jump to the middle of round two. Just before another running back gets taken off the board. So, and again, all I have is who's picking, obviously behind, who's pick number 7?
That's Brad Evans. Right after
Evans. So, right. But now he's picking before you because it's a snake draft.
Right.
He went back-to-back running backs, and then you went back-to-back running backs. The only two that did that. Was that your process going in? Did you think I'm going to try to go running back, or are you still trying to get the best player at that point in the second round?
No, because if I'd wanted to take the best player, I would have taken Travis Kelce.
That's actually what I was going to ask next, based on your name.
But my thought process was I wanted to build this like I would a redraft team, and going into the season, it's half point PPR. While Travis Kelce is without a doubt the better player on the board, I wanted to try and build a decent stable of both running backs and wide receivers, and then look at seeing if I could capture some value at tight end later in the draft. That's typically how I wind up building my redraft teams. So that was how I wanted to approach this one, was that while Travis Kelce is without a doubt the better tight end, like the best tight end and the better player, I'd still want to be able to get as many core position players as possible before I look at the onesie positions.
Okay. Now that you're saying that, based on the way the draft ended overall, are you I understand, and I'm not going to say I agree or disagree, but based on the tight ends you drafted, would you have liked your team better if you had Kelce there instead of Jacobs? And then obviously I'd have to look down and see what other running back you'd have grabbed maybe a little later. Like you could have got Connor maybe a little bit later. Maybe an Ingram. I get these aren't guys that may or may not be their main on their team, but also they could be. So I don't know. Would you have rather had a Kelce there and then, had another running back later, or do you like what you got in tight ends and you're fine with your team overall?
I think I'm fine with my team overall. The one thing I would definitely knock the fact that if I look at the 7th, 8th round, like when Evan Ingram, Tyler Higbee, and like Hunter Henry were taken, like if I had grabbed either one of those in the 7th round,
you were like the last person to even get a tight end, if I'm looking right.
Yeah, the last one to get like my first tight end.
Right.
Now, to be fair, TJ Hawkinson and Jonnu Smith, they're tight end ones on their respective teams, both attached to good quarterbacks, so I think their situations are fine. But I think but on the opposite side, their guaranteed targets or their projected volume is definitely less. So I could cobble together some decent tight end weeks out of both of them. But had I actually looked at getting tight end probably in the 7th or 8th round versus waiting until the 12th, I was actually aiming for Mike Gesicki in the 11th, but JJ took him there. So that I would probably, if I could rewind it, I probably would have looked at getting tight ends somewhere in the 8th to 10th round, like versus waiting until the 11th.
Right. Where a handful of them went.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Because then that's my thing. So the first thing I see, then I don't know. I don't see Kittle going a lot in second rounds. He seems to be going in thirds and fourth on a lot of drafts I've seen. So Justin taking a tight end there. Do you think that's? I get it, Kelsey early. I don't get the Kittle one, but I mean there is a chance Kittle's the number one tight end at the end of the season.
Right. With the way that they were, I mean, he had the highest target share on his team. I mean, like more than any wide receiver or running back.
Right.
So it's just, and even though like San Francisco doesn't pass a ton, I mean, it's within his range of outcomes to be at least up there with Travis Kelce.
All right. Just that seemed a little early. And then I'm also going to say Evan Silva. I don't know. Amari Cooper in the second now. I'm a little off on Amari Cooper. Are you fine with Cooper there? Or again, there's so many weapons now on there on that offense. Where do you think he's going to fall?
I still like Amari Cooper. I don't know if I'd take him there. I mean, nothing but love to Evan Silva. He knows way more about this than I do. But looking at who was taken like there shortly after him. So, I mean, to me personally, I would rather have Mike Evans. That's
right.
just me.
Because four wide receivers went right back. He went Cooper, then Evans, then Golladay, then Schuster. Mm-hmm. And then Ridley. Now I see that. Ridley. And then personally, I mean, Odell Beckham that you ended up getting in the third. Me and you've already talked. We both like Odell Beckham. I'm hoping he falls to the fourth. Yeah. And obviously we don't know if he'd be falling that far because you took him. But a lot of, I don't know. I'm a little off on Cooper, and I get it. You know, it's a matter of, just thought process. And there's a chance that Cooper takes off because there's a lot of weapons. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, he's still for fantasy. We've learned that there can be a lot of weapons, but the number one can still perform, and get you 2 TDs and 78 yards or 101 yards and 1 TD. I mean, and the ball still get thrown around because he's going to be wide open. Maybe he gets more of those long catches where he's getting 40 yards here. You get 1 40-yard pass in a game, you only need a few more to get in that 70, 80-yard range and get yourself some points. So we'll see. In your opinion, when you look at the board, what's the first pick that you look at and go, ooh, I wonder what he was thinking on that one?
The Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick in the third round by Scott Barrett.
Let me Scott Barrett.
That's the @FF counselor. He switched his handle to that, but he took Clyde Edwards-Helaire at RB 15, so third round, 5th pick. That to me that's too early in a redraft league. I can't bring myself to do it. That's why I was gunning for Damian. I mean, look, I got Damian Williams 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds later.
Yeah, I saw that. I went. I mean, because we've talked about Damian Williams a few times, and like I said, I think he's gonna start out there number one, and obviously, I think Damian Williams is helped by the way the season might start off, meaning with no training camps or anything. I can't. We've had that discussion. I'm not taking rookies at all, let alone taking one in the third round.
I know, and he's really bullish on CEH, and I get it. He was drafted in the first round. He's going to Kansas City. I mean, me personally, I can't do it.
No, especially when there was still Odell Beckham, Cooper Kupp. I mean, hell, I'd rather even had Le'Veon Bell probably. I don't know. I agree with you. That is a pretty good one. So when you were sitting there, were you hoping for Odell Beckham the whole time at that point?
I had actually assumed that Odell was going to be gone. And so if Odell wasn't going to be there, and at this point, since I had taken 2 running backs like in the first couple of rounds, I would have been looking at probably Allen Robinson like as my fallback for that.
Right. Now, you also at that point, I got to make sure I'm going the right direction. Mahomes is on the board at that point for you. Wasn't even a thought?
Not really. I mean, again, like I know that we JJ, who wound up taking Lamar Jackson like in the 4th round, I hadn't really considered it personally.
Two picks before you would have picked.
Right. But even looking at quarterback in the 4th round just really wasn't on my radar. But I wanted to specifically do that because being in a draft with these experts, I wanted to see like where they see quarterbacks with that high of an ADP as being values. Okay. So if they're saying that taking Lamar Jackson in the 4th round is a value, then that at least gives me a better gauge for how I can look at drafts in the future.
Well, especially JJ, the late round quarterback guy.
Yeah.
I have listened to you say multiple times that Lamar Jackson to him is a value in the 4th. I think I think based on listening to his podcast, that I could have told you he was probably going to take him if he was available there in the 4th. Because, you get running, there's a lot of things you get there. I don't think I'd have pulled the trigger necessarily. But I thought that was, and the reason I ask about Mahomes is on your board, I think of your whole draft, I question your quarterback pick because I'm not a Wentz guy. So I'm going to ask you now that you've seen the whole draft and the way it played out. See, because personally, I don't know. I think I'd have waited a little longer. I'd have rather had Tom Brady in the 13th than Wentz in the 10th. I don't know. I'm going to ask your opinion. After you've seen the draft, do you still think Wentz was the right pick there? And if so, what do you see in Wentz that's going to help you?
Well, when it comes to drafting quarterbacks, especially in fantasy football, I mean, they have to have both the ability to like create good production, like with their arm, but then we also want that rushing upside. I think Carson Wentz has both. I mean, the past couple of seasons, he's put up at least like 200 yards rushing, which at least, that puts him within, Dak Prescott just put up about 250, 270 rushing yards. And Carson Wentz has done that pretty much all 3 seasons, or at least the past few seasons. So, if we're getting both the passing upside, also getting rushing upside with him. They also drafted a wide receiver in the 1st round. He already has 2 good tight ends to pass to, along with, we're assuming Alshon Jeffrey's coming back. Both of his running backs, they can also catch out of the backfield. They also had one of the highest neutral passing rates, like in 2019. So this is a pass first offense on top of having pass catching backs as their primary and secondary options. So, yeah, I think Carson Wentz is one of those guys that, assuming he's healthy, he has one of the best paths to outkick his ADP value. Tom Brady, he relies solely on his arm to get him there. And if we even think that that's going to fall back because he's getting older, not passing deep as much, whatever narrative you want to ascribe to him, the fact that their defense is out getting better so they won't need to score as much, whatever narrative you want to ascribe to him, that's fine. But at least for me, Carson Wentz comes in as one of those guys that I want to target because, yeah, he gets it done through the air and he can also scramble when he needs to.
We will disagree to disagree. I'm sorry. I see what you're saying, but after looking at the board, I'd have rather waited 2 or 3 more rounds, and I'd be more than happy with the way you drafted to go. Take another running back there, and I'll settle for Breeze, Rodgers, Brady. It's a mock draft. I don't think anyone's going to kill you to have one of those guys in the 12th round instead of, the 10th round Wentz. And those guys are even going in the 13th and the 14th. So that was the one thing I kind of looked at on your whole team was just that quarterback pick. And I'm just not a Wentz guy. And then when I see names like Brady, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, and Breeze in a mock draft, I'm like, all right, I'll just wait till the end. Because I look at an expert draft like this, every team I see that has 2 quarterbacks pisses me off. Because in my opinion, in an expert draft like this, they drafted another quarterback instead of doing the research to see who they really should have taken in the 15th or 16th round. I'm sorry that, no expert should be taking Mahomes in the 4th. You should be done. You shouldn't look at one more quarterback, in my opinion,
Yeah, so, you don't need to.
Right. So to me, when I see that in a mock draft with experts, and we've talked about mock drafts in the past, ones you weren't involved in, I think there's two ways to do it. Some guys are doing it to make you talk about it. They're taking crazy picks. They're doing things. And then if it works out, they'll tell you, see, I told you because I did it in some mock draft. But then I think when I see 5 or 6 guys copping out and drafting a second quarterback in the last couple of rounds, instead of giving me some more names of players I might want to draft in the 15th or the 16th round, come on, it's a cop-out. Come on, Matthew Berry, you can do better than drafting Ben Roethlisberger in the 15th. Draft somebody else, a real player. Give me some names out there. I'm sorry. That pissed me off. Other than that, I enjoyed, looking at the draft board. I'll give you the last say on this draft. Did you have fun? Or did you learn a lot? And I guess, were there any comments from any of these guys towards you?
No, I don't think nothing towards me, but I definitely did have fun. I mean, getting the chance to draft with all these big names, I mean, is definitely something that, cool. I mean, it's a great experience to be able to do that, to see like where their head's at and where they're valuing folks. Because even if I disagree, so let's say, especially with Scott Barrett's pick of CEH, I mean, it forces me to take a better look at it because Scott Barrett is one of the premier fantasy analysts. I mean, whatever you think about him, I mean, but he's been doing great work for a while to be able to get a job with PFF and then now he gets to work.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but you even said it here. Chris Allen, my expert, you told me you took the draft 100% serious and you drafted like you would draft. Yeah. So I would want to ask him, is that really where you're putting the guy, or did you say, hey, this is a mock draft, I want to test something? Because I know they do that.
Well, some of them do, but that's my point, is that by looking at his picks, it makes me think about like what was his strategy? Like what's he thinking about like in the value for CEH? Does he really think that he completely blows Damian Williams away and he becomes like the guy such that in a redraft league you would want to draft him in the 3rd round? And if that's the case, what data is he looking at to suggest that's even possible? Is it just the draft capital? Is it stuff that Andy Reid has said? Is it something that their GM has said that makes them think that this pick is the end-all be-all for running backs like in Kansas City, at least for the 2020 season? Have I missed something? Do I need to re-examine my process? It's when experts like that make their picks, it makes me re-examine my own process so that when we get into drafts in August, we have a better idea of what those values are and what they should be.
But see, I look at his team, and again, I don't know the guy, but I look at his team. His team's the one where I have the biggest question mark. Was he experimenting? Was he, because he went wide receiver, tight end, running back, a rookie running back, and then a quarterback. And then the rest of his team, I'm sorry, when I look at it, his later picks are a little weak when you start out. In my opinion, a little weak in some of those spots. I get it. He's got the best tight end and maybe the best quarterback. If he, there are people that think Mahomes, and maybe that's what he's gunning for. He was the one person on here I really would want to talk to and say, all right, explain yourself. Because
is he the guy that like immediately after the draft, he's already trying to make trades within his league? So does he just like go for value out of the draft and then like just start making trades like from day one? I don't know.
Right. I mean, because like I said, if I'm taking that rookie in that early, then I'm definitely coming back with 2 or 3 decent, number 2 running backs, but he didn't, instead he went with Mahomes. And then I'm sorry. I mean, I understand McLaurin. McLaurin's a second year wide receiver on a team with a little question mark as far as their offense altogether. So I don't know. When I looked at everybody's team, I would have rated that one. That's the one I would rate the lowest. But I saw, like I said, if I've got to look down there. So other running backs he could have taken there. Gurley Johnson. See, I if I was him, I'd rather had Odell Beckham there and then come back later. And, he still could have grabbed Gurley, Johnson. I don't have a problem with David Johnson. I don't know. Because it's Connor. We don't even know if Connor's going to be the number one on Pittsburgh, is he?
I think that's the idea, is that he'll be the number one in Pittsburgh, but he's got a short leash considering that, I mean, they've got a number of guys behind him. They drafted a guy. I'm sure it was like fourth round, I think is when they picked up Anthony McFarland. But still, I mean, there are a number of guys that are itching to get on the playing field. And also Jalen Samuels actually looked pretty decent. Like he was usable. And
then his third running back is Jones. I mean, Jones is also a question mark.
Yep.
In Tampa Bay, is he the number one in Tampa Bay? Maybe. Yeah. I'm just saying, if I'm getting a rookie running back that high up, I'm going to come back with a couple guys that I know at least are going to be number ones. So
yeah, that's where at least my thought process was, let me get some guys that I know are stable early, and then if I want to take some shots later, then I can do that.
Right. I mean, Kamara, Jacobs, Beckham, Woods, Metcalf, Cooks, and Williams. I mean, your top 7 players are, good quality right now. Obviously, things change in spring training, but to me, that's a good core to start a team with. If you start your team that well with the first 7 or 8 picks, the bottom 7 or 8 don't matter as much. You can move them around. You can moves. You can trade some waivers. But when you start out, I get it, Thomas, Kelsey, but then, Edwards, and then Mahomes, and then McLaurin, and then Connor, Edelman. What's Edelman? I don't know. Jones. So the whole thing, I mean, so when you start that bad at the top, your bottom better be good. And I don't know. And then he comes back again. He's one of those that if you're drafting Mahomes you don't need Tom Brady in 13th. His team needed somebody else. And it could have been anybody else. So, but it was exciting. I was glad to watch and glad to, read about it and see that my expert was involved. So
I did my best.
Well, we just have a few minutes because we blew it all on your expert draft, and
we blew it on marble racing. Stop it.
Well, I'm trying to see NASCAR started too. That's right. But we have fun here. And don't forget my big meat. But we got about 10 minutes here. And I'm going to use that 10 minutes because starting the next few weeks, we're going to talk about best ball. So I don't want to go in too much depth other than I'm looking for a sales pitch on best ball. Give me, explain a little bit of what it is, what the advantages are of getting involved in it. Is it good for your regular? I'll just ask that. First of all, go ahead and explain best ball to everybody. I think most people know, but just, where do you play it? How is it mainly played? And then I'll ask a few questions.
All right. So best ball is essentially, it removes all of the Sunday night or Sunday morning scrambles before roster lock. All right. Anytime that you've had to go through and figure out, should I sit this guy, start this guy? Oh my God, the weather looks bad in this area. So should I sit this guy or whatever? I mean, if you've ever had to do that, which should be everybody has a story like that, then forget having to do all of that. Best ball will take your roster. I mean, all the players on your roster, even the guys on your bench, and it will calculate your best score based off of the roster requirements. So let's say if you play in a 1 QB league, the traditional league, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, so on and so forth. It will find who your best starters would be based off of their scoring, and then it will just say that's your score for the week. Removes all of the need to figure out on a week-to-week basis who's going to be the guy that you want to start or sit. If you want to go ahead and draft players from multiple teams, so let's say, for instance, if you're talking about, let's say the New England running backs. So if you don't know if it's going to be a James White week or a Rex Burkhead week, or it's going to be Sony Michel's week, or now with Damian Harris is going to be Damian Harris week, draft 2 or 3 of them, and then the the software or the site will figure out who's the best guy that you would need to start out of all three of them. I wouldn't actually condone you drafting all of them, but the way that you set up, or the way that who you draft, their best scores become your team's best scores, regardless of if you would have thought to start them or not.
Okay, let me stop you there, but just to make sure, but you still, if you can start 2 running backs, you only get 2 running backs worth of points. Meaning if you had a third running back that also went off and was higher scored than all your wide receivers, you don't get his points. You just get the two best running backs.
Right. And then, if they could fit into your flex spot, they could wind up being that.
Okay, that's true. So if you have a flex spot, it could be whatever the next best high score would be.
Right.
Wide receiver, running back, or tight end would then go in there. Okay, I forgot. I don't think when I played last time, it's been a few years, that they had a flex, but I'd have to really think back. But okay, so you're drafting, but it is one of those things where you draft once and you're pretty much done, right? It's a draft it, pay and forget.
And then you just let it go, and then you log back into whatever site that you use to draft it. You check it around the middle of December. You might have money in your account, you might not, but by that time you probably forgot that you drafted anyway. So it is what it is.
It is what it is, right? That's what I ended up doing. I eventually, at the end of the season, go, wait, I think I have some best ball leagues out there I need to check. Yeah. And unfortunately, I've still yet to draft a best ball league, and that's why we're going to do this. I still draft the best ball. I use best ball leagues to practice drafting for my real league. So I'm doing it just to kind of learn. So I'm really drafting a certain way and not thinking about building a team. So my strategy for winning obviously is not right.
Well, yeah.
I'm using it for a different function, but it's fine if that's what you want. If you want to do a mock draft where people have money on the line, it's a way to do that.
Sure.
You just have to realize that there's some different strategies being played.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of folks, go ahead.
Are most of them 10, 12, 14, or, is it a set number or does it vary from site to site?
In terms of the number of people in each draft?
Right.
You can do 12. I think my FFPC and Fanball, they do 12s. They do, I think they do 3-mans as well. I think there's another site called Drafters. I think they do 10-mans. Okay. But I don't think I've seen too much in between.
And are most of them a winner take all, or is there a payout structure, or does it vary?
It varies on the site. Most of them do. It's a structure. So like first place, they'll get like a significant amount, let's say like 70% of the pot. And then second place will either get a small percentage of that, or even on Fanball, I believe it's winner gets 90% of the pot. And then the second place person gets a credit to another league of next year of the same size or same type rather.
And just to let people know, if people want to email us, justafantasyfan@gmail.com, or they can hit you up or me up on Twitter. We are going to, when this is all over, we're going to put a league together.
That'd be great.
We're going to try to do a draft on at least a few rounds on the show when we've got done talking about best ball. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And hopefully we get some of the Sportscrew radio network people involved, and I have to have you set one up, and we'll try to, I think we want to do a 12-man league. So
yeah, I can set up a private one so we can make sure that it's just us and like the listeners, and like get everybody in there, and we can just do a slow draft to make it. I think FFPC, because that one's more of like they host more of the high stakes leagues, so you can pay up to like, I think it's like $1,800 like for one team.
Sure, I think we can do that.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Absolutely not. I'm not doing that. But Fanball is better.
You don't want to spend that much money when I'm in a league with you. I get it.
No, I'm actually I'm going to be drafting a team with Connor Allen, with who's also with 4for4. That's going to be worth a little over $300.
There you go.
We're going to do that one together. I think in August. I think is when the event is. But like that's as high as I'm going to go.
I don't blame you. I think I did multiple $10 ones, and then I found a site that you could play for $1. And to me, for $1, I was just using them to mock draft, just for, practice, I guess, more than anything else. And knowing that somebody had something online, and, I think I lost money in every single. I think I drafted 10 $1 teams, and I'm not sure I cashed in one of them. Well, because I was drafting like it was a redraft, and that probably was the wrong thing to do. But years ago, before I really knew, I just thought it was a way to, and I'm sure it helped. Maybe it helped me win other leagues. I don't, it just helped. I just thought it was a way to help practice drafting. So
it can. I used it for the same purpose, because if you understand player value and ADP that way, you can transfer a lot of those same strategies and tactics over to redraft.
Right. I mean, it's back to our poker days. It didn't hurt to play other types of poker, even if Hold'em was your main game. If you played Stud or Omaha, there's other strategies, so it makes you more aware of those strategies when you go back to your own game.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't hurt whatsoever. I guess probably, hopefully you change my mind through the next 2 or 3 weeks where we talk about this. But part of my thought process is it just seems more lucky than skill. And maybe that's my naiveness of just not knowing how to draft for it. I know you wrote an article, and so 2 things. You have an article up there right now, multiple best ball articles at 4 for 4. And also just let people know the expert draft. There's an article on 4 for 4 also going over the expert draft. And you can see that the draft we talked about earlier, that's on their website and everything too. So people can go to 4 for 4 and read the articles and see what we're talking about. But so is it just my naiveness? I mean, is there a true strategy? I mean, do you look back and go, most people who win best ball did it this way, so we know this is the way to draft?
No, I don't think there's any true single strategy, because there are multiple ways to win. I mean, there's always a chance that you can wind up drafting this year's Christian McCaffrey or this year's Lamar Jackson, such that they carry your team and they vault your team right to the winner circle. It's entirely possible. But are there optimal ways to build a team? Absolutely. And that's really what I try. That's where my draft strategy kind of falls into there. I try and build my teams optimally. But that's also where I wind up losing, because I don't try and take on a ton of risk when I draft. So it's like guys that are on the fringes. So guys like Deshaun Jackson, guys like even Mike Williams, guys like Tyrell Williams. Guy that sits on the fringe here that if things break the right way, they could wind up exceeding their draft value. Right. I wind up avoiding some of those guys, but in best ball, that's really where you want to take your greatest swings at guys like that, because you don't have to worry about when to start them. If you don't have to worry about when to start Deshaun Jackson, you should grab Deshaun Jackson, because you're capturing the most value there. You get those 2 to 3 weeks where it's 60 yards and a touchdown, 90 yards and a touchdown, and then you just wait and then you let the rest of your wide receivers on your roster get all the points the rest of those weeks.
Right. Best ball, the guy that you would hate to have on your regular team.
That's the guy you should be drafting on your best ball teams.
I got you. Which means if you're drafting like I am, and you're drafting based on how to make a redraft team good, it probably is not close to being what you would want for an actual best ball.
But no, it could be, because those same guys that you would want on your regular team. So if you're drafting a normal PPR league, you still want to get guys like Robert Woods. You still want to get guys like
they're going to be good every week. There's also it's later in the draft where you're looking for those guys. If he gives me 4 weeks or let's say 8 weeks or 6 weeks where he's the top scorer, and then the other weeks he does nothing, I can live with that. Where in season long, you don't like that, because you usually sit him on the bench when he has the good weeks, and you're sitting when he has the shit weeks.
Right, exactly. That's where you'll see guys take rookies, right? Because we have no idea how they're going to work for their teams, but at least based off of draft capital, we can at least tell ourselves a story of how they can get onto the field and start seeing touches. So you'll see rookies incorporate in the best ball draft strategies, because you just never know. Guys coming off injury, or guys that might have injury risk, guys with contract issues that might be holding out.
That I'm assuming you can draft a little later. It's the late rounds where you're going after those kind of people. We're not talking. I'm assuming you're not talking about taking these guys early. but it's later in the draft, middle of the draft, where you start going, okay, now I'm looking for a guy that's going to get me those big weeks here and there versus a guy who's going to get me, I'd rather have a guy get me 16 points, every third week than get me 6 points every week.
Right. But you'd be surprised. I mean, there are still like Jonathan Taylor, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like those rookies that were drafted, not even early in the draft, but still have a path to significant touches. They're still getting drafted in like the 3rd, 4th round of best ball drafts. Right.
Because rookies, you don't know, and especially if they landed in a place where they should be their starter. All right. Well, like I said, we started late and then we've gone over now an hour, but that's where we're going to go the next 2 or 3 weeks. Next week, maybe we'll get more in depth into the strategy, maybe talk a little bit about ADP for best ball versus ADP for standard. Then we'll move on, probably the following week on actual roster construction and that kind of stuff. And then maybe we'll do a mock best ball, just me and you live on the air, and then we'll move on to actually do a real draft.
Let's do it.
So we'll get into it, and then I'm going to commit to doing more best balls this year. And I think, are we already at a point where you can be doing them now, right? I mean, there's actual drafts going on now for best ball. So if you just want to get involved now and start practicing and or getting your get some money in, and start the gambling blood flowing already.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what are the 2 main sites right now that have best ball?
FFPC and Fanball.
Okay. So now for us, do you recommend one? I mean, is one of those better than the other? If you're new to it, would you recommend if you're new to it, I'd recommend Fanball because you can kind of get your feet wet and understand the basics behind drafting at a cheaper cost. So because Fanball has them there for $10 a piece. So I can see myself, drafting 3, 4, 5 of them just to get an understanding of how everything works. And I've only spent $50. Right. Whereas the minimum price over at FFPC is $35. I know for a fact a couple years ago I played on some side. I know for a fact I played 10 $1 ones. Could I be thinking wrong, or maybe it's
that was draft. That did exist, but it's gone away now. It's a part of FanDuel.
Oh yeah, you're right. That was draft.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be like re-releasing the product at some point, but I have no idea when that'll be.
Yeah, because it was an app on the phone. I could just you could sit at work and draft a best ball team at lunch.
Yep. All
right,
and it was great.
Yeah, it was. That's why I thought, okay, but that's not around. So right now, $10 is about the low end.
Yeah.
And like I said, high end, probably you just look around at whatever you want to spend, you can probably find it. So,
oh yeah.
All right, that'll be good. Chris, like I said, we've gone over an hour now, but I know I said some of your stuff for 4 for 4. But where else and or what other articles do you have coming out right now, if any?
So right now working on another best ball piece looking at like stacking. So if you were to wind up looking at a specific team and saying you want to invest in that team. So if you want to get like, I don't know, Tyler Higbee and Robert Woods or Dak Prescott and Tony Pollard, or just insert team stack here, like how that is, it could be used optimally in drafting or in putting together your rosters. So that's something I'm looking at. Also doing a couple of rookie profiles. One that I'm working on is looking at Zach Moss, the new running back for the Buffalo Bills. So check that out. And then of course, always doing the dynasty stuff over at DLF. So my content's everywhere.
All right. So again, it seems like we'll have a lot to talk about, and I'm just going to ask questions because I'm no expert. I have drafted with Matthew Berry, so we'll use you for the expert on the best ball stuff.
Okay, fine.
Right. Well, I had a blast. I'm gonna get
your meat
in the refrigerator. I just put it out tonight. It's pretty rock hard still, but I knew I needed to get it out tonight if I was going to be cooking it, Saturday or Sunday, because it was been in the freezer for a while. Are you cooking anything yourself on Memorial Day?
I hadn't planned on it yet. We'll see what I can get my hands on, if at all possible.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
All righty.
I'm Easy Kill. I'm just a fantasy fan at Gmail, or I'm out there just a fantasy fan on Twitter. If you are interested in best ball, shoot us an email or tweet one of us, and we'll put your name down, and we'll try to get 12 people. And after all this, we'll do some best ball drafting and see who wins. That's my other part. You have to sell me on that. Just put your money down and wait 8 months.
Yeah,
that's the hard part, I think. But all right, Chris, I had a blast, had fun. It was worth the wait. And say good night.
Good night.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.